Here's what you can look forward to on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
I believe that we want to believe that we can do massive change rapidly in an instant, that we can put it on a social media platform and boom, if everybody clicks like, we have made that change. I know that it would be great if that could happen, but I also think that we're smart enough people that if that could have happened, it would have happened.
What are we going to do today? Same thing we do every day, Pinky. Try to take over the world. Oh, and listen to the Nice Guys on Business podcast, of course. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
Nice Guy community. So today our job is to help you get from the starting place where you could be right now to a spot where you want to be or may hope to be in the future, which would be maximizing your potential. Life coach and best-selling author Dr. Brenda Bowers is passionate about her mission, and she wants to help you. In Brenda's book, World Changers and Difference Makers, a comprehensive guide to transform your life and mend the world one sphere at a time, she brings decades of proven experience in personal and professional motivation, relationship management, communication clarity, and will help to provide solutions to maximize purpose, your purpose. And I'm excited to have her here. I'm interested in finding out what World Changers and Difference Makers are. So Dr. Bowers, Brenda, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thank you so much, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I love having you here because it's very rare that we actually get world changers and difference makers, or at least those that know that can stake the claim that you can help create world changers and difference makers. So I got to start with a definition, because before we can do it, I got to know what it is that we're doing.
I think that's very important. I tend to be among those that seem to be more of the minority, but I still like to think that that is not true. That it's just that we are under-identified, and that is world changers, people who really want to see a difference. Not only want to see a difference, Doug, but believe a difference can be made. So a world changer is one who not only wants to change themselves, but they are actually committed to changing themselves so that we can have a better world, a better society. And we do that by making a difference, because obviously some of the same old we've been doing is getting us deeper and deeper into a quagmire of becoming a society that people are actually starting to wonder if we are going to continue to exist, if we're positive people. And those are questions that should never come to mind, in my opinion, for anyone who has the great opportunity to live on this planet. So a world changer and a difference maker, not that we're changing the actual substance that exists, but we're going to know how to use it in a way to reach our potential so that we see change and we see difference. And I think that really aligns with a lot of what your work does, Doug. It's really, you know what? It's nice to be nice. How about we learn how to do that?
Yeah, well, I always thought a better business starts with better relationships, and better relationships, it's all about just making sure you're doing the right thing and catching people in the act of doing something right as opposed to doing something wrong. And that many times is the beginning point for me in building a great relationship, is just noticing that people are doing the right things and stop criticizing and critiquing. We have such a anonymous society out there. Everybody is so critical of everybody else. And how great would it be if we go through life with the idea that I'm going to catch you in the act of doing something right. I mean, I love that idea. So
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say absolutely, because when we catch people doing right, what we're actually doing is identifying the world changers.
Yeah.
And when we identify the world changers as the ones that are getting caught doing right, and then we want to replicate those individuals, then all of a sudden difference begins to happen. And I believe it's positive social difference that happens.
So, what do you think about those that are out there? And maybe just help me. I know that you can't answer for other people that put on this moniker, but the idea that there are so many people that have this mission, they want to change. They want to change the speaking environment, 10 or the entrepreneurial world, 10 million people at a time. And how realistic is it to think that somebody that puts a label of something that large and that huge in front of them, do they want to be a difference or a world changer or a difference maker? Absolutely. I think they really do go about it with the right intention. But then how do you measure that kind of stuff? Because, oh yeah, he changed, you can say somebody like Gandhi was a world changer, difference maker. And certainly that's important to see somebody like that in action. But how about the guys that are just like you and me that just want to change it a little bit at a time, or then the ones that want to change it millions of people at a time on that mission?
Absolutely. So I think even whether it's Gandhi or you and I, it is still starting at the same place, and that is starting with self. We want to get these huge outcomes so that we are waking up in this brand new euphoric state when really what needs to happen is we need to look at ourselves. The only way I believe we become world changers and difference makers is if we're really willing to know ourselves.
Hmm.
So it starts with self awareness for me. And in my book, I really talk a lot about that because that is the nucleus of these spheres. And because we're going to be world changers, I use spheres and 5 different spheres in 2 different worlds. And the first one being this self life world. What are the 5 things that need to change? So instead of us wanting to change 5 million people by telling them all if they do this one thing, how about we start with just saying, what do I need to do for me so that I can now emulate this change that can happen in millions? It can,
Hmm.
all of us can do it, but it can only happen if we're willing to look at ourselves first. I think that we have mastered um, being able to criticize everyone and everything. I think we all have multiple level PhDs in that realm. But
Absolutely.
to step back and say, what about me? Who am I? And I challenge us to even answer that basic question. How well do I know me? How well do I like me? It has to start. So I start with some very basic questions to help us develop into those world changers and difference makers. If we transform ourselves, then I believe we can mend the world.
I love how you say that, and I think about every relationship coach that I've had a chance to meet through a couple of unfortunate failed relationships that I've
Mhm.
had in my life, but then the positive impact that these relationship coaches and counselors have had on me, and it's almost it totally mirrors Gandhi's "Be the Change," and it really is about you can't change anyone else. You can only change yourself. If you try to impart your wisdom upon somebody that's not receiving, then they are not going to do anything differently. So you have to be the change. How realistic is it to think that we can make this happen, these big game changing, huge changes in the world, one person at a time? Or do we really have any choice? It has to be done that way.
I think we would love to believe because of the speed of change that we have accepted as a society. I believe that we want to believe that we can do massive change rapidly in an instant, that we can put it on a social media platform and boom, if everybody clicks like, we have made that change.
Wow.
Well, I know that it would be great if that could happen, but I also think that we're smart enough people that if that could have happened, it would have happened.
Yeah.
And what we have found out over time, as we talk about Gandhi, what wisdom. If you really want change, then start with yourself. So, those of us who are willing to be called out as archaic, as old, as whatever term wants to be used to say, starting with one person, no one has time for that. Well, the only time we have is to start one person at a time.
So it's interesting because I think about it, and I think about change is important for in order for us to keep up with the things that are going on in this world. I also think that there are a certain amount of people that kind of go through life. I don't want to say this in a derogatory way, but they do go through life unconsciously. They really don't have a conscious thought of why they're doing and what they're doing is actually having an impact on those that are around them. They are so busy, caught up in their own world. How do you even begin to convince or even share or even help someone? I don't know if you can help any, who knows? I don't even really know where it's going. But the idea behind it is you have to be conscious in order for this to happen. In order for you to be a world changer, a difference maker, or a player in this life, you have to be conscious. You can't let life happen to you. You have to make life happen, don't you?
And we have to allow that to have permission. There are many things that have occurred in our society that has forced us to feel like we do not have permission to just be ourselves.
Hmm.
We have to be measured against iconic, unrealistic, unreachable stars, moons, satellites, whatever you want to call them, that it almost makes it an error to pause and say, hey, I want to know me. It
Hmm.
almost makes us the strange guy, the strange gal that says, I want to know who I am. I want to be nice. So for me, we start with this sphere, this nucleus of self awareness. And we have to give ourselves permission to be aware of ourselves because when we're not aware of ourselves, believe me, everyone else is. And most people tolerate people who are not self aware because of a talent they bring to the table, because of something we believe we need. And we decide that even though they are not aware of how they're coming across to us, and even though it may be derogatory and offensive, we have decided that them lacking awareness of self is acceptable and even greater than the contribution that would positively change society.
Oh, I love
So
it.
so what can we do? So what can we do? Well, self-awareness is really our ability to understand who we are in the midst of a world that has no one else in it exactly like us.
Hmm.
So the truth is, Doug, that there really isn't anyone else in the world that's exactly like Doug, that's exactly like Brenda. But guess what? We get to do that's so phenomenal. We get to understand who we are in the midst of this world that has no one else in it exactly like us. And then we can have a conscious knowledge of our own character, have a high level of understanding of our own feelings, our own motives, and our own desires. What excites us? What ignites us? What depresses us? What suppresses us? And once we get in that place, then the pressure of surviving in a world of increasing demand that requires skill and mastery and
Hmm.
all of this stuff, it's really saying to us, we are begging for individuals who are self aware, but we have to pause long enough to meet ourselves.
Yeah, one of
Can our world pause long enough to allow each of us to meet ourselves?
I enjoy where you're going with this, and Nice Guy community. As you're listening to this, just keep in mind, just see if you can answer these questions. And I'm getting these directly from Dr. Bowers' website. So see how you answer these questions for yourself. And then I want to come back after I ask these questions, Brenda, and I want to ask you how do you even begin? Where do you start? So if the end question is where do you start? I want to ask these questions to my community that are right on your website.
Sure.
Are you tired, Nice Guy community, of looking in the mirror and wondering who's looking back at you? Do you need to heal from past hurts that you can't undo or erase? Have you felt like you're stuck in the quicksand and that's pulling you down and completely under at a record pace? Do you wish that you could turn your life around and start it all over again? Has your anger and frustration with yourself and with others driven you to a dark place where you don't even where you don't even like yourself, but you still expect others to? Or have you lost your very passion for why you are even here on this world? So if you are thinking about those questions, if you ever look at yourself in the mirror and just wonder, like, what am I doing? Like, what's my purpose on this place? Dr. Bowers, where do you even start? Because those are such huge questions. And, I would have to say that those are questions that I wouldn't say yesterday I asked myself those questions, but when I'm in my darker times, when things are happening in my life that I'm not exactly sure, like, what lesson am I supposed to pull out of this,
Mhm.
that's positive or something that's going to come good out of this? Where do you even start to answer those questions?
I think that what happens is exactly what you just said. We go there when we are penalizing ourselves, when we feel that we have failed, when the world has told us we failed, when we get to a dark place. But what if we ask those same questions when we were at our best place, when we were in our lightest place, when we were at our most successful moment in
Hmm.
time?
Hmm.
And we ask those same questions, we would ourselves get different answers. So, the way that you really address these, because you can address these, and I'm excited that I'm among those who believe I have the skill and the talent to help you get there. And that was very hard for me to say because I didn't like me. I didn't know me. And now I can, with clean hands, say, but I can help you get to know you and I can help you be a positive contributor to society because I have been who you are if you're someone who feels like those things that you just said. And I start really simple. First three questions for self awareness on a scale of 1 to 5. How well do I like myself? One being not at all, five being I love myself. When I am in a room of people, I do a 2 hour session that's called Getting to Know All About You. And I don't care how many people are in the session. We do open research. I say 1, 2, 3, put your hands up. And we look at it. I count. How well do I like myself? And I typically get somewhere around a mean of maybe 3.2 of how people like
On a
themselves.
scale of one to
Of
five, or not to
Yeah,
10?
on
Oh,
a
okay.
scale of 1 to 5.
That's
And
that's that really is really a commentary on where people are in this world. It's a shame that people aren't. I mean, again, I would love everybody to be at a 5.
yeah,
You got to be
yeah.
higher on that scale than a 3.
You gotta be higher, but we're not. And then my second question is, how well do I manage myself? Oh, there we get a mean from on a 1 to 5, like a 1.8 to a 2.1.
Yeah, yeah. I knew that one was going to be
Yeah.
lower. Yep.
And then how frustrated am I with myself right now? And the reason the right now is important is because you just answered those two prior questions. And that in and of itself is helping you to become more aware of you. So we start to get a higher mean between that 1 and 5 into the four, sometimes 4.5 of I'm really frustrated with me right now. So once we start getting some of that awareness, even if it's frustration, now we're starting to talk about, oh, I'm aware and maybe I don't really like myself yet.
Hmm.
So we have to then go out into that next sphere, which is relationship management. And I think one of the coolest things is to accept that you have to love you more than you love anybody. If you're gonna, I don't care if it's your wife, if it's your dog, if it's your children, if it's your job, you have to love you more if you really want to maximize the relationship with whoever and whatever you say is the most important thing or person to you. So
So,
once you just start becoming aware,
hmm.
then you have to immediately go into some relationship questions. And I have three simple ones of those as well. But
Yeah.
go ahead, Doug. I'm
No, no,
sorry I
I
cut
want to
you
hear.
off.
No, no, you didn't cut me off. I was going to agree with you. I wanted to talk about your book a little bit because I know that a lot of what you're talking about is inside the book. But but I also want to talk about we're going to have you back on the show because we have a lot to talk about. So tell me about you were about to talk about three things within relationships. So let me hear
Yes,
about
that you
those.
have to same five. So we're doing the same scale. We have so 1 through 5, one nodded off, five off the charts. Phenomenal. So the first question for relationship management is how well do I know me? And I give people a little time because hands go up and come down, people ponder, and then how well do I know me? Very interesting. We get about a 2.8 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then question 2 under that relationship sphere is, do I want to know me?
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 5, do I want to know me? Well, there we get high fours. High fours on, yeah, I do want to know myself because now that I've answered those awareness questions, now guess what? I actually do want to know me. And then the third relationship question is, am I someone who anyone else should want to know?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back down. We get back down to around a 3, 3.1, because now we start seeing confidence come into play. The more I'm aware of myself, I do want to know me, don't know that I know me very well, but I'm not really sure anyone else should want to know me. Well, if we don't believe someone else should want to know us, why should they if we don't want to know ourselves?
Right.
Why should my partner be penalized for how I treat him or her if I'm treating them reflective of how I feel about myself? I must feel excellent about me before I impose myself upon someone else. If we really get into that, it sounds so esoterical, but if we really commit to wanting to have a relationship with ourselves, if we're really willing to move beyond theory into practice and put the oxygen mask on ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
that's when we get into this sweet spot about, maybe I can make a difference. Maybe I can start changing things. You know why? Because I want to change me. It
Well
starts to
said.
happen in that relationship
Yep. I can
sphere.
see it. I can see it. But I also know from that perspective, it's very challenging to have a very positive, healthy, thriving relationship with anyone else if you do not have that relationship with yourself first. And what would you say would be a symptom of someone when they know it's time for them to take some level of action to get either professional coaching, professional counseling, something beyond that they are able to do or deal with on their own? What would be a symptom, would you say?
I think one of the best symptoms is when you find yourself in a public place and all of a sudden you become very self aware because you have said something or you've done something, and everyone else in the room is looking at you like, are you kidding me? You just said that? Did you really just do that? Or someone steps away from you, they decide to take 10 steps backwards, or they say, I'll think about it and maybe I'll give you a call next week. It's been really nice meeting you. Hope to
Yeah.
see you again sometime.
Yeah.
When we have that encounter where we become self aware, not because we've done the work to become self aware, but because everyone around us has made us self aware in the most uncomfortable moment of our life.
Mm.
And right then is our best opportunity to go get help, do something about it. Find Doug, find Brenda, but get someone who has some expertise in this and start working on yourself.
Well, I love that you took a universal approach to assisting and beginning the journey for some people, so that they can make it really easy and attainable to get the help and get the information. You wrote a book. You wrote the book called "World Changers and Difference Makers: A Comprehensive Guide to Transform Your Life and Mend the World One Sphere at a Time." So, just in a few moments, what motivated you to write the book. I think the first step, in my opinion, to become a difference maker is to take the message from just a one-to-one relationship and take it to one-to-many. So that for me would be a good reason. But what was your reason for doing it?
My motivation was I have done a lot of executive coaching. I have done coaching for hospital presidents, system presidents, multi industry CEOs, vice presidents, executive VP, senior leaders, as well as middle management, brand new management, supervisor, and staff level. And what I have found is if you can really do some excellent coaching at an executive level and get leadership to buy into the power of individual change and difference,
Hmm.
then you can move the ball faster.
Yeah.
It's easier if I start coaching staff and I haven't convinced the CEO of why this is important, then we'll probably never see the change.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the CEO, the highest executive, buys into needing executive coaching around awareness and relationship, and the third being presence, authorial presence, because authorial presence is a really cool one to me because it's realized when we learn to never surrender the ink pen of our presence to
Hmm.
anyone. When you walk in a room, you do not share your ink pen of authority. You keep it in your hand, you write your own story, and you present the way that your best self can present. I say it like this as a presence is this state of being noticed or the influence that's projected and received, which creates a basis for how the remaining part of the experience will be interpreted. So, are you present whenever and wherever you are present? Are you the author, the owner of your presence? So, if you're going to show up somewhere, then give yourself and everyone else a present, the gift of being present.
Mm,
So
perfect.
that is so powerful if we show up from the basis of being aware of ourselves, we have a good relationship with ourselves, then we're not taking this permanent marker and drawing over everybody when we show up. We keep the pen to ourselves and we write our story and we write our presence. We don't have to scribble up the room to try to take the objectivity, the focal point off of us. So when I wrote World Changers and Difference Makers, what I found was that change could happen, but it really did have to start at an executive level in a company, but yet in a courtship or with a relationship, it could still start with a husband and wife or
Hmm.
two best friends.
Yeah.
So as I saw how this modeling could now work anywhere in the world with anyone in the world, then I knew for certainty that we could change the world, make a difference by transforming ourselves. And I really would say it's about learning how to be nice to yourself so we could be nice to others, so everyone could experience worldwide niceness.
I love it. Well said. Well said. And finally, I want to ask you this question because I think that we all look to find something relatable about everyone that we come in contact with in the course of our day. So make yourself relatable to those if you haven't already done so. I know there's many in our community that can completely relate to the subjects that you're talking about. But from a work under progress perspective, we all wear that sign that says work in progress around our neck on a constant basis. Sometimes we actually need to look at that sign a little bit more closely. I know I do every once in a while, need to look at that. So what are some of the things that you are still working on as that work in progress for your own personal, benefit?
Well, that's such a great question right now because I wrote my book in 2017. And a word for you, I put my business together. I was learning a lot of your top 10 things, putting things into place as it related to acuity and bookkeeping programs and
Hmm.
and Google Docs and all these different things and really feeling good about kind of my one man show, and then I have one other person working with me. This all happened after my position was eliminated when the company I was working for 15 years was acquired.
Wow.
And we were told that the work that I was doing, this coaching space, this professional development space, was a space that this new company was very committed to because they realized if you don't invest in people, then you will still spend the money two, three, 10 times somewhere else.
Hmm.
But once the ink dried, that wasn't the case, and they did eliminate that part of the work. But that's really when I realized I had a personal passion and I didn't just have a professional passion. So I wrote the book after I'd lost my job. That's how I spent the next year working the book. And then in 2018, I started to promote the book very slowly because just brand new area. I had been an entrepreneur. I hadn't been an entrepreneur. I was a person that kind of did my thing under the safety of the corporate arena.
Hmm.
So I was getting all that down pat. What makes me most relatable is in 2019, March 14th. I had to have surgery, and that ended up turning into a life-threatening situation,
Wow.
and my family was told numerous times, more than 5, that I wasn't going to make it. 2019. And from March 14th to 2019 until Labor Day, I had over 7 surgeries and over 20 procedures to try to keep me alive.
Wow.
So I am on a slow recovery right now, and still here I am on a podcast
Well, I appreciate you
because
being here.
and guess why? Because I was so tired of waking up, Doug. I had become the victim
Hmm.
of my own book. I said, I don't want to wake up anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't even know why this has happened to me right at the time when I was turning a corner. This is not worth it.
Yeah.
I don't even want to. I was a person that wasn't suicidal that didn't want to live. So I think the definition of that is a coward, probably. But
Right.
but what ended up happening is as I kept waking up, I said, okay, if I open my eyes again, I'm going to start trying again. And that's what I've been doing since Labor Day. Not a long time. I turned 60 Sunday.
Wow.
And I
Congratulations.
said,
It
thank
did.
you.
Don't you don't look like that from your website. So.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Well, I'm telling you, I said, I'm either calling it quits or I'm going to have to rebuild. So right now, Doug, I am at a everything that I had in place. I had 3 really good contracts right before this happened. I obviously couldn't meet the needs of any of them. So what I'm saying to the community is when everything is gone, when you have made it to the top, when you know who you are, when you have a good relationship with yourself, and then you get hit by a Mack truck and all your resources go to medical bills and living life, and you have a severance that's gone because you used that right in the book, and you don't know if you're going to live and you don't even want to,
Yeah.
that you can still from that place. Why am I a work in progress? Because while I'm talking to you today, I'm a start over of the book that I wrote. So I
Congra-
would say for people to
Yeah.
maybe continue to check me out and see if I can make a comeback, because I'm telling you, I'm starting from the nuggets of the nucleus of self-life awareness.
Well, congratulations for being here and being as genuine and as completely transparent as that. There would be many people that would come on the show and not present that side of themselves, and to be as vulnerable as you were. So well appreciated, and so my heart goes out that you've been through everything that you've been through, and just beginning that road of recovery and having the strength to to come on and not only have this book that you're sharing, but your message that you're sharing, and with the mission that you have. I always think that things happen. I just had a conversation with somebody that was on the show earlier today, and he was in an incredible accident in 2008, and we talked about how the complete horrible situations that happen in people's lives, whether it's cancer or health, another health scare, or anything, they've come back to be people's most prized blessings. And if you look to what has happened to you, even since early of 2019, and think about it, at some point the turn is going to be made, and you're going to say, I'm sure you're going to say, man, if that hadn't happened in my life, I would never have been able to get to where I am right now. And that could be tomorrow. It could be 5 years from now. It could be, in a year from now. Who knows? But
well, let me come back when that happens.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely. Totally.
Thank you.
Totally happy to have you here, and happy to share your story and your message and your inspiration, and so very much appreciate. I know we went a little bit longer than I said I was going to go, but your story is so compelling, and I appreciate Brenda, you being here and sharing everything that you did.
Oh, Doug, thank you for giving me the extra time. And also, I think we're only as good as we are authentic. So we have to be transparent, we have to be willing to engage, and we have to be willing to empower. If we become so unreachable and people think, oh, yeah, just another person who's out there that's so far beyond our reach, it's important when we're given, I want to say, opportunities. It's not fun being on life support and not knowing what happened for several months in your life. But what's more important is for me to say, I'm so committed to being a world changer and a difference maker that I will stand and I'll still hold the torch of it. If it's the last torch I hold, it's still the right one to hold.
Completely agree with you.
Well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I think that this will be a blip on your radar screen, as impressive as it is right now. I think that when you get down the road and see that the change that you have made and the difference that you've made in the world, I think it will be a lesson that was valuable for you to have, unfortunately, have gone through, but at the same time to say, fortunately, I went through this to get to where I am. So thank you for being on the show, and Nice Guy community, again, thank you for participating in the show one more time. Never underestimate the power of nice. Special thanks to Dr. Brenda Bowers. All of her information, including access to her book, World Changers and Difference Makers, a comprehensive guide to transform your life and mend the world one sphere at a time. That will be right in the show notes. Click on the link and you will have access to that book right now. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.